Thank you. And welcome everybody. Shri Matre Namaha. Welcome to the session of decrypting you through the Lalitā Sahasranāma. So we're going to move on to the next nama here, number 52, and then I'm going to give you a broad perspective for you to hold and contemplate until the next session. Shiva Kameshwarankastha. Okay, Shiva Kameshwarankastha is number 52. And the ordinary way in which we think about this nama is Kameshwara, Shiva, Kameshwara, right? So Shiva is Shiva. Kameshwara is the specific form that Shiva is in, that Lalitā Devi is in union with. So he's called Kameshwara. And there are descriptions of Kameshwara, which we will, encounter later. But just to give you a heads up, Kameshwara is absolutely spectacular. I mean, imagine he needs to match Lalitā Devi in her splendor, right? So it is said that he is absolutely magnificent. He's beautiful and perfect in every aspect. So it is said that, when Lalitā Devi comes out of this, the sacrificial fire, that all the devas, remember in the first class, we talked about this, where they are throwing themselves into the fire. And finally, she emerges on the Sri Chakra. And she is so beautiful that all of creation, including Brahma and Vishnu, every aspect of creation just pauses simply to take her in. Right? She is so perfect. She's so gorgeous, so beautiful. And so when she comes out, and then, we'll see in the next few classes how she destroys Bandasura and so on. And after this whole thing, when she comes out, the devas and Vishnu and Brahma who are there, they say to her, you must take a concert. She's like, no thanks. And they're like, no, you must take a concert. And she's like, why? Right? And then she looks around, and suddenly, while this is happening, Shiva has appeared there as Kameshwara. And he's the only one worthy of her magnificence, her brilliance, her beauty. And so while she's resisting, she's looking around, and her eyes fall on Kameshwara, and she's like, yeah, that one. So she goes and garlands him, and they become married. So Shiva Kameshwara Ankasta. Ankasta means a part of Shiva. So typically that's how this nama is interpreted, that she who is a part of Shiva as Kameshwara, right? But we don't go for typical interpretations, do we? So she who is not just a part, right? So she who is Anga means body. Anga means body. And when we say she is the part of Shiva, we are saying she is the body of Shiva. Okay, so Shiva is awareness. Shiva is without any attributes. And all of Shiva's attributes are Devi. All of Shiva's attributes are Shakti. As we discussed in the last few classes, how, even in the Saundarya Lahari, the first verse says that without Shakti, Shiva is Shava. So Here we are emphasizing that she is his body. Now, what is the body of the Supreme? The body of the Supreme is this universe. All the aspects of the universe, the manifest and unmanifest aspects of the universe, are the body of Shiva. And the body of Shiva is Devi. Because awareness itself is without any attributes, it can only be this way. And so when we typically look at the depiction of Shiva and Shakti as Ardhanarishwara. Ardhanarishwara means it's a form of Shiva where he is half Shakti and half himself, Shiva. And we typically say, well, this is Shiva and Shakti in union. That's not the case, actually. Because it implies, when you say something is in union, it implies that there are two becoming one. That's not the case here. You have seen those tantric depictions, for instance, Tibetan art and so on, of deities being in union. So there are two bodies and they are in union. That's not what is happening in Ardhanarishwara. Right? There are no two. There is only one. So if you look at the attributeless aspect, that would be Shiva. If you look at the body of this attributelessness, that would be Shakti. So we will see shortly how all aspects of this body are actually Devi. But awareness in itself, in its pure form, would be Shiva. So Shiva and Shakti weave into each other. She is awareness, and one of the ways I talk about this is that Shakti in stillness is Shiva, and Shiva in motion is Shakti. Okay, so that's a more accurate way of understanding this particular verse. So she is Shiva Kameshwara Ankastha. She is the part of that. Shiva is the next one. Okay, Shiva. So just in case this was not clear to us, the author of this wants to really emphasize and say, Shiva. Shiva Kameshwarankastha. Shiva is the number 53. Shiva is Shiva. This Kameshwara. Shiva, the long A, is Shakti. Okay? So long A, Shiva, means she who has all attributes of Shiva. That is Lalitā Devi. So again, it's an emphasis on that, just in case we have a tendency to put her next after Shiva. It's like, no, don't do that, because that would not be accurate. Okay? Shiva Kameshwarankastha, Shiva. So she is the wife of Shiva, you can say, but she is Shiva in this form. So what does Shiva mean? Shiva means auspiciousness. But it also means, so Shiva means auspiciousness that is being manifest continuously. It is continuously arising. How does anything arise continuously? See, the secret is hidden in the word continuous. What does continuous refer to? Time. So what is Shiva then? Time. What is time? Consciousness. How does time manifest? As forms. What are the forms? Shiva's body. What is this body? The goddess. Right? So auspiciousness is not separate from time. We just finished a class actually on the Nitya Devis, and I was talking about this. Who is time from the aspect of, the goddess tradition? Kali. So Kali is time, and Kali is auspiciousness, and Lalitā Devi is auspiciousness, and she is time. What? Yeah, they're all the same. All right? So there is no separation between Kali and Lalita. If you look at creation as auspiciousness, that is Lalita Devi. If you look at creation as time, it is Kali. If you look at them combined and understanding, okay, what is reality minus forms altogether, minus the body, minus the time that creates the body, that would be Shiva. Different aspects of the same reality being emphasized here in different ways. So Shiva is that particular nama. Shiva Kameshwarankastha, Shiva, next one, Swadhina Vallabha. Okay. Again, this is such an incredible play on words. Really, there are very few texts that bring this kind of beauty to this language. Swadhina Vallabha. Swadhina means Swadhina. Swa means self. Adhina refers to support. Swadhina means self-supported, independent, free. Vallabha. Vallabha means the lover, the beloved. So you can translate this and say, she who is self-supported, the self-supported lover of her beloved. It's so many contradictions here, right? What do we do in our life when we fall in love? We do everything to give away the self-support, right? We become totally dependent. We kind of give away this swa-adhina. As in, when we are talking about being self-supported means not reliant on anyone else for my sense of self, not reliant on anything for my own sense of self. The world doesn't add or subtract from my sense of self. That is swadhina, to be absolutely self-supported, independent. Imagine what this kind of a union would be, right? Where she is madly in love with Shiva, so giving, so enamored with him, and yet absolutely independent. Right? Standing in her own power, standing in her own glory, and yet madly in love with him. Willing to do anything for him, remember? She'll give him anything. We saw earlier how she gives her breasts in her love for him. She'll give up anything for him, and yet she is standing self-supported. Such a contradiction, such a paradox. How do you stand in your own power and yet you are willing to give everything? It's only when you stand in your own power that you can give anything. She has no expectations of what Shiva is going to do for her. She doesn't even care. She's all giving, right? She's so in her own power that anything that comes out of her does not diminish her. But what happens in our relationships? Now, this is where the decrypting you comes in. It's a transaction, isn't it? I'll do this. What are you going to do? It's like we all come to a relationship with an agreement in place. Now, there are a lot of discussions on how, for instance, a marriage or a long-term relationship needs to be an equal partnership. Have you seen one that's equal in partnership? Like, what would that look like? Like, where do you draw the line and say, you give me this much, you do this much, and I'll do that much? It's always, and whenever we say equal, it already doesn't make sense because we're talking about two different people, right? Or more, two different people of any genders, any kinds of, arrangements coming together, but they're all different. And so what one is capable of doing is not the same as what the other is capable of doing. And how do you measure equality? And so all, these conflicts that begin in relationships around give and take is based on this thing of not being swadhina. Because if I'm totally standing in my power and I am self-sufficient, I am never going to be depleted with what I give. Depletion happens when that depletion is coming from this internal state of, oh no, I'm the one that does all this. I'm the one that needs to be doing this. And, I'm not getting anything in return. It's always a transaction with the other that's outside. So we need to feel fulfilled by somebody else. Otherwise, we feel depleted. That's not the case with Devi. She's so self-supported that she can give and give and give and be madly in love with her beloved, and yet she can give. Right? So Swadhina Vallabha. So here we start to see, this thing of Devi, which will tie into the next verse and the next nama. Because what are we talking about here with regard to independence or the Swadhina? It is the lack of an ego. Lack of me and mine and I. That's the only way we can become Vallabha, Swadhina Vallabha. When we come into a relationship with God, when we come into a relationship with Devi, when we come into a relationship with Shiva, do you think it can be transactional? Do you think you can have a transaction with Devi and say, I'm going to do this. What are you going to do for me? Take it from somebody who has tried such things in the past. She says, go to hell. I'm not obligated to do anything for you. She says that, but she does everything. You cannot come to anything with a transaction. That mindset of a transaction. I'm going to break this coconut in your temple, Mom. Just make sure I give this, I get this in return. So one of the things, one of the reasons why our attempts at manifesting things in our life fails is because we don't even understand the principle of manifestation. If you want to manifest something, you have to change your very structure to be able to embody that which you want. If you want a new car, with all kinds of gadgets, you have to change your mindset to be able to use those gadgets. If you are the same and you get that car, what are you going to do with it? You have to grow in order to meet that thing that you want to manifest in your life. If you want a partner in your life, you have to change yourself to meet that partner you want, that ideal partner you want. Why would the ideal partner, your ideal partner, meet you where you are. You have to change yourself to come into this mode of being in such a way that you are at the vibration that brings that to you. That's the secret of manifestation. So here, Devi is devoid of I or me, completely devoid of it. She is completely self-sufficient. And so when she can, when she wants to be with Shiva in a particular way, she has no expectations of what he's going to do for her. And that being devoid of that I is how she resides in her palace, which we are going to see in the next few namas. Sumeru Madhya Shringastha. Sumeru Madhya Shringastha. So this is number 55. Madhya means center. Shringastha means that which is decorated. Sumeru is the name of the mountain. So Sumeru Madhya Shringastha. So it is said that there is a whole description of Devi's palace and residence. So if you want to go to this palace, first of all, it is in it's an island, and that island is floating in an ocean of milk, nectar. And in order to get to the palace, you have to go through 44 enclosures. Okay, for all these different enclosures, different types of environments, different types of terrain. You're going to go through different types of trees and flowering trees and fruit trees. And then you start to see walls made of diamonds and sapphire and emeralds and rubies. And then you will come across minor temples in between, minor little shrines where you see the living goddesses such as Varahi and Matangi and other goddesses residing there, just watching you walk by. Imagine how nerve-wracking that should be. And then you come to Devi's palace. So this is a description of Devi's palace. Sumeru Madhya Shringastha. So it's all decorated like this. So in the esoteric way of understanding the Sumeru, and I'm going to give you, a brief understanding of this. Everything that we study in the Lalitā Sahasranāma is really about a description of the Sri Chakra or the Sri Yantra. So the Sri Yantra is primarily a structure of triangles. So there are 5 triangles facing one way, 4 triangles facing another way. Depending on the tradition that you're, that you are in, those 5 triangles could be facing up or they could be facing down. In the Shakta traditions, those 5 triangles will be facing down. Because those are the triangles of Shakti. The 4 triangles are facing up, and they are the triangles of Shiva. Now, already, what do you get from this? The Sri Chakra, you may have heard, is a perfect symmetric structure. You've heard something like this? And right off the bat, it's not symmetric. Because there are 9 triangles, not 10. Right? So 5 coming down. What does that tell you? Necessarily, she is dominant. Necessarily, Shakti is dominant because there are 5 triangles coming down. Down where? Down towards manifestation. 4 are towards transcendence of Shiva. Now, these 9 triangles are intersecting at different points to create 44 triangles, smaller triangles. Originally, this was the Sri Chakra, or this was the Sri Yantra. Later, over time, other structures, other kinds of elements were added to it, such as the 3 circles, the concentric circles, then the 16-petaled lotus, the 8-petaled lotus, the square around the whole structure. They were all added later. Even now, in some traditions, Sri Chakra as a thing, when it is worshipped, only refers to the triangles. And when you understand the importance of all these structures, the bhupura, or the square, is the field of action. Then you have the 16-petaled lotus, which is one slightly subtler thing of the mind, all the different attractions of the world, the external world, that keeps the 5 triangles going. And then you have the 8-petaled lotus, which is the fundamental agitations of the mind that keep that creation going in the outward direction. And then we come to the 14-triangled enclosure, which begins the Sri Chakra. So the 44 triangles are arranged in such a way that if you look at it in a specific way, you'll see 14 triangles, you'll see 10 triangles, 10 more triangles, then 8 triangles, and then a central triangle, which is downward facing. So, in other words, by the time you come to the worship of the Sri Chakra in some of these traditions, it is assumed that you have already worked through all of those problems of your mind. And so the emphasis is on the 14 from the 44 triangles. So the 44 enclosures I just told you about, they all refer to these triangles. Different aspects of the mind of this body-mind complex, the microcosm, that are enclosing the palace of Lalitā Devi. So, Sumeru Madhya Shringastha. When you look at the Sri Yantra, you can look at it as a flat structure. And commonly, we also see it as a Meru, where all these different avarnas are stacked one on top of the other. In my personal practice and experience, that is still not a complete picture, because it's still in 2D. It may be 3D to a certain extent, but each of those triangles is not actually a flat structure, right? When you look at any triangle, it's necessarily going to have a base and it's going to have 3 sides to it. So now you can imagine all of these 44 triangles, or the 9 triangles, and then all of these structures being projected in space in all directions. So everything is basically a 3-dimensional structure. And all of these 3-dimensional structures, they converge to a point. The convergence of that point is where Lalitā Devi resides. So and where is the Sri Chakra? You are the Sri Chakra. You are it. This body-mind is the Sri Chakra. And encoded inside this body-mind, is the exact information that is encoded in the universe, the macrocosm. So the microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm. Rather, the other way around, the macrocosm is a reflection of the microcosm. Every element can be mapped to both places, here and there. And so, Sumeru, this whole thing is the Sumeru. And Madhya, residing in the middle of all this is Devi. And this whole thing is completely decorated. Decorated with what? Decorated with our the different aspects of the body-mind, the subtle body, the causal body, the physical body, the pancha pranas, the different pranas that we have going on, the different fluctuations of the mind that create the various chemical and the neural pathways, the electrical and chemical pathways, the different neurotransmitters. Everything is resonating at a particular vibration, at a particular frequency. The meeting point of all of these frequencies is the Madhya. Where is Madhya? Madhya, you can say, is in the middle, but it's not really the middle, because the middle is not really a middle. The middle is permeating everywhere. The middle is permeating everywhere. How is it permeating everywhere? Because it's non-localized. There is the addition of a fourth dimension in this, which is the dimension of time. So it's a continuously happening process. It's a dynamic process where this middle or the Madhya is exploding into all of the different aspects of the microcosm and the macrocosm. And if you try to find Devi in the center, you will not be able to find her. First of all, because there is no such place as a center. That center is non-localized. It's continuously moving. We will try to find Devi wherever we find our own I. But what did I tell you in the previous Nama? She has no I. So it's a non-localized experience. So the understanding of Devi here as Sumeru Madhya Shringastha is, here she is residing amidst, in the middle or in the center, in this non-localized, spaceless, timeless dimension, as the one controlling all aspects of space and all aspects of time. Because if you want to control something, you have to be beyond it. And she is beyond space and time, okay? Controlling all the different aspects of this Sumeru, okay? So, Shriman Nagara Naika. Sumeru Madhya Shringastha, Shriman Nagara Naika. And it says, she is this whole thing is called Shriman Nagara, okay? The city of auspiciousness. You thought your body was just a body that was eating and going to the bathroom and sleeping. No, it's a vehicle of auspiciousness. It is the city of auspiciousness, right? And she is the leader of that. Naika means the leader of the city of auspiciousness. So she is the living, breathing, she is the vital force of this city of auspiciousness, where you have in this in the Sri Chakra, you see all these different energies, you see all these different aspects of reality, and she is the leader of all of them. So, Shriman Nagara Naika, Maha Padmatavi Samstha is the next one. So, Chintamani Grahantastha, Pancha Brahmasanastita. So, Chintamani Grahantastha, so she is in a palace made of this mystical gem called Chintamani. Chintamani is a gem that gives you whatever you want. It's a full wish-fulfilling gem. You think about it and it is fulfilled. And her entire palace is made up of Chintamani. Okay? Chintamani Grihantastha, Pancha Brahmasanastita. So, where are you going to find this Devi? So, you have to go to Sumeru, and then you have to walk over to her palace made up of Chintamani, and there you will find her sitting on a throne that is interesting, to say the least, because the throne is made up of the Panchabrahmas. So the 4 legs of the throne are Brahma, Vishnu, then there are 2 aspects of Shiva, and Rudra and Ishana, and then the seat of that throne is Kameshvara himself, and she's sitting on top of him. You're like, wow, that's amazing. So, in a way that, for those of us who are into this female empowerment, it feels like, wow, that's really amazing. But that's not really what this is all about. Okay, so this is talking about Devi's control, the leadership of Devi on 5 aspects of existence. Creation, Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, Rudra, the destroyer, then there is Ishana, the concealer, and then there is Sadashiva, who is the revealer. Now, in your life, coming to decrypt you, in your life, as you go about anything, any task, your life in general, there is that energy that creates. There is that energy that sustains whatever you're creating. And when the time comes, there is the energy that walks away from it, destroys it. That aspect of it is gone. And at various times, as you go about that particular thing, it will conceal its true nature to you. Has that happened to you at all? Where, you are doing something, you are in a relationship, in a project, you are having a completely ordinary day, and some part of it is not clear to you. Some part of your own aspect, your own mind is not clear to you. You don't know why you're doing something. That's a bad thing if that's your default state, by the way. You should know at least sometimes why you're doing what you're doing. But sometimes we can have no idea. It's like a fog. And then eventually that fog clears and you are clear. So we go through these phases of delusion and clarity in our own lives. In our every aspect of life, of this, the cycle of creativity, we are going to go through that. So on a broader aspect, Brahma is the power of creation, and you can say Devi holds that in her hand. Vishnu is the power of sustaining whatever is created, and she holds his power. And there is Rudra, who destroys everything, destroys creation. And here, again, I want to emphasize that a good understanding of this is the sequentiality of time. In order for this moment to be here, we have to destroy the previous moment. You can't accumulate the previous moment and have today, you can accumulate all the days of your past and have your today. Imagine how painful that would be. Where would you put them? Right? Where would you store your yesterdays? There'd be no place to put them, right? And the past is the past because it no longer exists. The future no longer exists, but there is no clear distinction between them. And the one that destroys one, and so that the other can be here, destroys the past, the present can be here, destroys the present so the future can be here, is Rudra. And she controls that aspect of creation. The power of concealment is Ishana. We are all deluded at various times. So all of the universe is actually in a state of delusion, in a dream state, and that is her power. And yet she's the one who can bestow the grace to reveal her true nature to us, reveal her true form to us. And that is Sadashiva. So you see, Devi, you can imagine walking through this incredible island. You're going through all of these fragrant forests and gardens of various fruit trees and flowering trees. You're walking through these magnificent enclosures of diamonds and all kinds of precious stones. And then you see this palace that you've never seen before. And the minute you step into that, you think of something and that wish is fulfilled. Cheesecake, done. Right? Tesla, done. An advanced degree, done. $1 million, done. Imagine, you think it and it's done. The key is you need to keep walking so you can see Devi, right? And not get distracted with all of the things that you were thinking about. So you go there, and there she is sitting on this throne. Remember that story I told you where Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva go to see her and touch her feet, and they are transported into, this other reality. See, that is the power of concealment. Even they are not exempt from her power of concealment. So even they get deluded, right? So what about us, poor mortals? So Pancha Brahmasanasthita, Mahapadmatavi Sanstha, Mahapadmatavi Sanstha. So Padma means lotus. Maha means great. Sanstha is in the middle. So it says, amidst the lotus forest. Now, where is this whole thing happening? So now we're going to zoom out a bit. Okay, now we have this vision of Devi. Now we're going to zoom out and say, okay, where exactly is this whole thing happening? Where is this palace? It's in the middle of a lotus forest. Mahapadmatavi, not just a simple lotus forest, Maha, the great lotus forest. So what are all these lotuses we are referring to? This is a very decidedly tantric teaching, because in Tantra, we have this concept of chakras. And chakra means wheel. So depending on the tradition you look at, depending on the particular path you may follow, Vajrayana, or this or that, there are different numbers of chakras. The most typical one, and the most common one that we use, and you may be familiar with, is the system of 7 chakras, starting with the Mooladhara chakra and ending with Sahasrara chakra, which is a little bit of a misnomer because the Sahasrara is not really a chakra. It is a transcendent state of all the chakras put together. But in the tradition of Sri Vidya, there are 2 other chakras. So there is a chakra there are 2 chakras actually below the Mooladhara, and we access those when we are doing these rituals of the Sri Chakra Puja and so on. So the importance of these chakras is this. Each chakra will have a specific number of petals. Each petal is resonating at a particular frequency. And together, you put the resonance of all those petals of a particular chakras together, you get another frequency, a combined frequency, or a sum total of all those frequencies. And so the whole chakra is resonating at one frequency. And within that, each of those petals is resonating at another distinct frequencies. Each of those petals, because of their distinct frequencies has a definite color. It's called varna, and we're going to see this later. Varna means color. So when a sound vibrates at a particular frequency, it has a specific color. So there are all these lotuses of the chakras in the subtle body with all these different frequencies and colors. It's the great lotus forest. And here in the middle of all of this, now, all of these lotuses, they're as if they are threaded along the nadi, or the very subtle thread that goes along the spine, and it is known as the Sushumna Nadi. Ordinarily, what happens is these chakras become stagnant. And what are these chakras? You can say that each one represents a particular aspect of our mind, of our body mind, that that has different ideas, different assumptions, different kinds of perceptions that are preventing us from seeing reality, preventing us from seeing Devi as she is, preventing us how ordinarily chakra means wheel. So it should be whirling. When it is whirling, those frequencies come together and start to hum. And it is actually the hum of the chakras that allows us to see Devi in her full form, because this whole universe is a musical universe. It is made up of resonances and frequencies. And Devi in her full form is way beyond all of these frequencies. So in order to be able to see her, we have to be vibrating at a particular frequency. And we are not, because of stagnations in these chakras of specific types. Okay, so when all the chakras are whirling, they're active, they're not stagnant anymore, then each of those petals, it starts to vibrate in alignment with this Shri Chakra that I was telling you. And so all of those resonances come together and take us to the apex of that Sumeru. Sumeru Madhya Shringasa takes us to this palace, takes us to this understanding, to seeing and experiencing Devi as she is. So Mahapadmatavi Sanstha Kadamba Vanavasini. Okay, Kadamba Vanavasini. Ordinarily, we think of Kadamba as a particular type of tree. So Kadamba Vana means the forest of Kadamba trees, and that's where this Chintamani Grihantastha is. This palace is in the center of the Kadamba forest. But Kadamba actually means something else. So the Earth is orbiting the sun in a particular plane. Okay, this plane is known as the ecliptic. The plane along which the Earth is orbiting the sun is known as an ecliptic. And it's not stagnant, by the way. That ecliptic keeps changing. So there are 2 points, the ecliptic poles. There are 2 poles called the ecliptic poles, which are the 2 points where this axis, which is perpendicular to the ecliptic, intersects what we call the celestial sphere. Okay, now what is the celestial sphere? It is it's not really in existence. It's basically, it is a large sphere that we imagine, which is around the Earth. And so those of you who may be a little bit familiar with astrology can relate to this a little bit. So when we are talking about specific aspects, so you're talking about nakshatras, or you're talking about grahas, you're talking about those aspects in the sky based on your position on the earth. And that position on the earth, that you're standing on the earth, there is basically a sphere that we imagine from where all of these objects in the sky are measured and understood and seen and calculated and so on. So it is centered on the earth. So now if you look at what now there are two poles of this ecliptic, of the earth orbiting the sun, and if you draw an imaginary line perpendicular to this that intersects that sphere, the celestial sphere, okay, where we are standing and watching everything, that is known as an ecliptic pole. Okay, have I confused you sufficiently? So there is this plane where the earth is going around the sun, and then from the standpoint of the earth, we are looking at the sun and all the objects in the sky. So you draw a perpendicular line from that ecliptic, and you'll find an ecliptic pole. So Kadamba refers to also ecliptic poles. In other words, she is in and none of these things are stationary, because the earth is constantly moving around the sun, and the plane is changing. It shifts. It's not in one place. It's one way of saying, on one way of understanding that what we are talking about, Devi's Kadambavana, is not really a static place. That there is a reflection of this microcosm on the macrocosm, as I was saying earlier. So it is in the middle of this Kadamba forest. It's an ecliptic plane that is talking. Now, whenever we talk about this ecliptic plane, we're talking about the sun. And the sun, in all these traditions, represents Shiva. So she is that ecliptic plane of the earth, or you can say, of this plane. And there in the center of that, you're going to be able to find Devi. So good luck with that. If you reach there, I'd like to know how you got there and what happened. Okay. So Kadamba Vana Vasini. But one more thing I wanted to mention here is Kadamba refers to a place, according to Guruji. Kadamba refers to a place where no wind can be experienced. There's no vayu. Okay, there is no breeze. There is no external disturbance. Now, the Anahata chakra is called Anahata or unstruck. Unstruck means it is self-sustained, right? It is a self-sustained vibration that is not struck by air. Air is the element associated with the Anahata chakra. You understand, or you realize the Anahata chakra, or that Anahata chakra starts to whirl when no air touches it. No air touches it means what? You no longer turned outward for your sense of self. The Anahata chakra, and I'm not going to go too much into chakras right now because we'll meet them later. Anahata chakra is the transition point between the lower chakras and the higher chakras. So here is where Shiva and Shakti come together. And coming together is in Kadamba, where it is no longer associated with the external world. In other words, where can you find Devi? When you go so deep within that you are not concerned about who thinks what about you. So when you are no longer no longer struck, you become unstruck. That is Kadamba. So in the heart space is where you're going to find Devi, because that is the ecliptic pole. That is where this body mind is revolving around Shiva. That in the heart space is where we are going to find her once we let go of all external seeking and validations for our own sense of self. Remember, it started with how she is united with Shiva. It's Shiva Swadhina Vallabha. Because she is Sumeru Madhya Shringastha Shriman Nagaranaika Chintamani Grahantastha Pancha Brahmasana Sthita Mahapadmatavi Sanstha Kadamba Vanavasini. So it all goes one after the other. You have to be free of the I, then you'll find yourself in the heart space. There you will find the convergence of all these points of the Sri Chakra coming together as this one resonance that is unstruck. It is not coming from the outside. It is your own resonance. So now you have cleared out all the things that are causing stagnation in the Mahapadmatavi Sanstha, right? In the great lotuses, you've cleared out everything that was preventing you from understanding your own self. And here you have come into yourself, unstruck. You're unstruck by the world. You're unstruck by anything else. You are you. And this is where you're going to find Chintamani. Now you can think of the Tesla and the $1 million and you'll find it. But the kicker is you may not want it. So fun. All paradoxes. So I'm going to stop here and see if you have any questions. Thank you so much for joining me. Any questions?
Srimatre Nama Kavita ji.
Namaste, Srimatre Nama Shalu.
So, my question, sorry, I know it needs to be more related to the Lalitā Sahasranāma, but just this last week, I feel like a big shift in my consciousness level. Like sometimes I'm like very devoted and thinking about God a lot. And then sometimes, this yo-yo, right, of the buddhi being situated in, Devi's feet, and then other times it's not. So I don't know if you can talk about that.
It happens all the time. We'll come to that. We'll come to that verse. The nama unmesha nimishotpanna vipanna bhuvanavalihe. That's the very nature of existence, going back and forth, until you become really stable. So that happens because of the chakras. You have to become stable within yourself, and that back and forth happens because there is no stability within yourself. And once you become stable within yourself, then that ping pong effect starts to decrease. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Kevin.
Srimatre Namaha.
Srimatre Namaha.
I had so many questions about the Kadamba, and your description of the ecliptic pole made me think of like a gyroscope with a north and south.
Yeah.
And the wobble covers the coordinates of everything we can experience internally in space-time. And when I thought about the Kadamba flower, it looks like a spiky ball with a bunch of poles. So it's like a snapshot of every possible place you could be. Devi's in the middle of that.
Yes, exactly.
And looking at how, as we progress from the coast, you could say, of the island of bliss, there's still this incline of everything converging to that Bindu or Sushumna pole through every moment, every experience. So the fact that these cities are given to us so early, it's as if to say, you're on the incline and you cannot command anything unless you're above it. So as you refine that resonance, you're Devi. At that point, you realize that she's been here the whole time. Like, I just wanted to say thank you for that visual. I'm going to look at the ecliptic pole and try to put it together. But looking at different, even namas for Kali, you see Kadamba repeated a lot. And I was like,
Yes.
what does this forest have to do with anything? But
Yes.
thank
Now you
you
see.
so much. Yes.
So if
thank
you look at, a visual of the Earth's plane around the sun, it's kind of wobbly. Exactly, wobbly is the right word, and almost looks like a kadamba flower. It's kind of jagged points everywhere, and because it's not like a stable thing. Nothing in the universe is like a stable thing, right? Everything is constantly in an unstable state, a chaotic state. So that's how it looks. So yeah, research it. I'd like to know your perspective next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, Kavita ji.
Hi, Anita.
So hi. So when we talk about self or ego or I, right? So basically, when we say we are rid of ego, it means we are rid of all our conditioning, the vasanas and everything. So what remains is the true self, as you call it in Shakti Rising. But the true self also has some attributes, right? I mean, I'm trying to find the difference between, so when I'm rid of all my assumptions, beliefs, conditioning, prejudices, I don't know if I can get rid of my vasanas, but it sounds very far.
You can't. So you trying to get rid of anything is still the ego.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be like, where is the line? But there is something with you as you when you are rid of the other self as well. At times I feel like I'm at real peace and like, where I really don't have any conflict. I'm so in tune with in like a flow mode. And sometimes I'm so like all over the place. And I can come back to this, but at times I'm so very confused about, is this, where is this coming from basically? How? Yeah. So whether it's my conditioning or is it my mind spinning up stories? Is it the source of whatever agitation, whatever, when I'm not at peace, the source of it? I cannot use my mind all the time. I try to use the point thing. Even then, I feel like it's my mind talking sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like it will be very helpful to have some pointers to find exactly where this is coming from.
Yeah. So there's no difference actually as far as practice is concerned. Where is it coming from? It's coming from the chakras. What is the chakras? The mind. Which part of the mind? A lot of it is subconscious. So how do we access that? And that's the whole thing with the point and stuff, right? It's really critical to stay in the body. If you go into the mind, you're going to go from the subconscious mind back to the conscious mind and spin in the stories.
Yeah.
You're not going to make progress, right? Because it's only staying in the body and the energy and learning to differentiate between what that energy is saying versus what the mind is saying is going to be the key in that. And that's what I'm going to teach in the in the immersion. Yeah.
And that's where I'm lost actually. I try to use the mind. I'm lost when it comes to the body.
That's the problem with a lot of the teachings which rely so much on the mind, and then you're just spinning, in circles. And you're not spinning in a good way of the chakra spinning. You're just, still in stagnation, spinning in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we are going to do that in the online course, because that is quite an involved procedure to be going into here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ronnie.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
First, I joined here. Thanks so much for having us. One question. I had read somewhere that you mentioned about the 4 and the 5 triangles. I read somewhere that the balance of them is what's important, not that one has more than the other, that the 4 and the 5 actually balance each other, or is there, as you say, a dominance of one over the other?
Yeah, balance, nothing in the world is in balance. That's like a delusion in itself. Nothing is, everything is balanced in its imbalance, is what I would say. There is order in chaos, or you can't really say, well, that's what I was saying. It's not, it's not like, okay, Shiva, what are you bringing to the table? And Shakti, what are you bringing to it's not like that, right? It's, when we say downward, when we talk about the downward facing triangles, 5 of them, it's just saying that in this understanding, creation is moving towards creating more. That's why the universe is expanding. That's why there's just more and more and more and more being created because of these 5 triangles coming down. The 4 triangles facing up also tells us you have to go against the grain in order to kind of transcend the flurry of activity of the downward facing triangles. So it's in Tantra, at least in the goddess traditions, we give them names called Vama, Jeshtha, and so on. So, Vama means like this force that is, it's unstoppable force in this creative mode. So in sadhana, in our practice, when we want to go against the grain, we have to like quite literally hang on to the coattails of Jeshtha. Jeshtha is the force that takes us against the grain of the mind, of the conditioning, to go towards the 4 triangles. That's why it's like harder to go that way and easier to go this way. But in Tantra, what happens is we access that by jumping onto the bandwagon of the 5 downward facing triangles. Whereas in other traditions of renunciation, you're trying to do it the hard way of renouncing these 5 that are so dominant and trying to hang on to the 4. But Tantra, what it does is this your conditioning? Go with that, find the nectar there. It is in your falling that you're going to rise, is basically the principle of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally does. It's kind of like my background's in sacred geometry, so like dynamic equilibrium, I guess is what I
Yes.
would call
Oh, thank you. I didn't understand that word, but that sounds really fun. What did you say?
I said dynamic equilibrium. So
Dynamic equilibrium.
It's
Yes.
always in movement and they're always interacting. It's not a static like death where there's equilibrium but nothing's happening.
Exactly. And that's exactly the principle of Sri Chakra, the way I have felt in my practice. It's that it's not static. It's completely dynamic. It's always alive, and so if you try to find something, you're not going to find it. You can't find it. You have to be it. So that's the key of the practice. Make sense?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, so dynamic disequilibrium, exactly. Anahata chakra could be that Vayu is present but completely still, and the stillness creates the unstruck sound. Exactly. You can't have creation without Vayu. Vayu and Agni are the primary forces of creation, right? At the beginning, even like Nada even cannot start without Agni and Vayu. So Vayu is primordial. And so here, when we talk about Anahata, it means that Vayu has become absorbed in the self. It's there, but it's turned its direction from being struck by all these external factors to being self-sustained. So that's the key. I hope that makes sense, Krina. Any other questions? So, yeah.
Kavita ji, sorry, I just wanted to mention one more thing.
Yes.
Today's namas, right? Like for the last year or so in my I wants, right, from Devi,
Yeah.
it was, I want to see what Shriman Nagar looks like. I want to see.
Yes.
Thank you so much for explaining. at least.
Yes, it's such a beautiful concept. And what I would recommend to everybody on this call and listening later is, you see, we are going into a deeper dive of the Lalitā Sahasranāma. So for a kind of a fundamental understanding, I do recommend that you read Glorious Alchemy or any other text. So you have like at least a fundamental understanding of these namas. And here we're going to look at deeper dives into them, if that makes sense. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming, and see you soon in a few weeks. Srimatre Namaha.